Yeah, hi everybody. Welcome to my reply post. I'm going to address three over the coffee cups, beginning with over the coffee cup 1 on the essays, and over the coffee cup 2 on the poems, and over the coffee cup 3 on the philosophers. This batch being the Christian philosophers, and we'll tie that into the divine command theory. Okay, so as far as this, I believe, our book of essays goes, these essays are, little you know, uh, rays of light in a world of darkness. Okay, and these, little rays of light can help light our way, as we move our way through the world. Okay, and the challenges that I'm facing, say, in my 40s, might be different than the challenges I'm going to be facing in, say, my 60s, and then even in my 80s. Okay, so, how great it is to have, men and women who have gone before us, who have really struggled and who have written essays like this to show us the way, okay? And, I'll say that it's not like each of these essays has to resonate with us. If out of, say, 10 essays we only, really get the gist of 2, or we only find 2 to be useful, hey, that's a victory, these are 2, virtues, or ways of engaging with the world that we didn't know a lot about before, but we do now. Okay, so over these 8 weeks, we're slowly building, our list of virtues, or our list of moral excellences. Okay, and find out how others have dealt with the obstacles of life. We find out how others have dealt with the trials and tribulations of life, and they too can help us, kind of clear the path before us so that we can, flourish, or we can be happy, or reach eudaimonia, as Aristotle would put it, or we can, obtain the beatific vision, as the Catholic theologians put it. That's, the eternal vision of God, okay, the beatific vision. All right, so let's keep doing great work on the essays. It's neat to see all of our personal life experiences being brought to these essays, and we each mine different sized gold nuggets out of these essays. This is what we're going for. Not everybody has to get the same thing. Not everybody has to have the same take or the same experience, but when we lump everybody's experiences together, we really have a good list of, things that we can really use in our lives. Okay, if not now, then at least down the road. Okay, war all the time. Second. It was hot here today in Florida, and it's like November, so I have to rehydrate myself. Hold on. Okay. War all the time. Again, we're bringing our life experience to these poems, and as a result, we can mine different sized gold nuggets out of them. And some of us are getting totally different takes on these poems, which is great. This is what's supposed to happen, okay? Don't be afraid or don't be intimidated if you don't get the same take as somebody else does, okay? We're just not going to read these poems the same way. And if this was a class with a short story collection, we would not read the short stories in the same way. If this was a class with novels on the syllabus, we would not read the novels in the same way. Period. End of story. It will not happen. Trust me on this. Okay. I taught literature for 15 years, and people read Flannery O'Connor in many different ways. People read John Steinbeck in many different ways, and people read Bukowski in many different ways. All right. So, it's good to take these moral theories and the insights and help the characters in these poems to better their lives. And this week we had the Christian way, whether it's the Ten Commandments, or it's the Sermon on the Mount, or it's St. Paul's teaching on the fruits of the Spirit, say found in Galatians chapter 5. These are all insights that Bukowski's characters arguably can use. Okay. All right, or maybe he could be told about Pascal's wager, maybe place his bets either for God or against God. That might get Bukowski's act together. Okay, or Henry Chinaski's act together. That's the alter ego in the poems. Henry Chinaski is Bukowski's alter ego. Okay, and that's one of the characters in these poems. Okay. All right, so So good work on the poems. And lastly, on the poems, before we wrap up with the great philosophers, these poems are really going to help us choose better words, better sentence structures. They're just going to help us to become better communicators, as I've said, in the past few weeks, okay? And, reading a few poems a day will really help us to compress and simplify our thoughts, to take, an ocean of information and really compress and simplify it so that we can present it to the world in a mentally digestible form or way, okay? Because who has all the time in the world to hear you and I ramble, right? People don't have time for that in the age of Twitter and the age of Facebook. People want to hear it now. Just, what do I need to know about Freud? Or what do I need to know about Nietzsche? Get right to the point, You ever been in a meeting where, the speaker is just kind of rambling on, and you're like, oh my God, just get to the bleeping point, And then you think, I got nothing out of this, what a waste of time, Or, some presenter has a PowerPoint and there's just all these blocks of print, and it's like, can you please just, summarize in, 1 or 2 sentences? Poetry will help us to do this, and then we don't look like, bumbling idiots or rambling morons in front of our colleagues, okay? So read poetry, read Bukowski, okay? This guy is a master of the English language, okay? And what took, Faulkner, 300 pages to say, Bukowski can say it in 1 page. And that's what makes Bukowski a poet, okay? And this insight actually comes from Faulkner in one of his, interviews at the end of his life. He said, some people, can, say things in a page and they become poets, and others say things in a few pages and they become short story writers. Well, others, Faulkner says, need hundreds of pages and they become the novelists, okay? So it really all depends on how your brain works, all right? Okay, and lastly, what am I going for here? What's the next topic? Can you guess? This is colder water. Wow, that was good. Okay, so with Christianity, we're dealing with 3 main topics. Number 1, we're dealing with God. Okay, God is an infinite being, but still a being. Okay, and God is something like a person. Okay, well, God steps out of God's silence and creates the world and begins to have interactions with the world, and something goes wrong, right? Okay, so we have God, and then we have creation. That's the second part, and then we have redemption. Okay, so God, creation, and redemption. Okay, and redemption is where Jesus, who is God in disguise, comes to earth and shows people how to live a life that will let them get right with God again, right? So God creates the world, something goes wrong with that world, and God does something to fix it, and that's where Jesus comes in, okay? And Jesus is basically, long story short, he's doing 2 things. Number 1, he's bringing the kingdom of God to the earth, and that's where he's bringing God's ways to earth and driving out Satan's ways, right? Satan can cause deformities in people, when Jesus heals people. Satan can possess people, and Jesus cast out Satan, okay? Satan can cause mental illness. Jesus can heal that, and he did, and he still can, according to the Christian story. Okay, so Jesus brings about the kingdom of God. That's number 1. Number 2, Jesus brings about atonement. Okay, just think at-one-ment. Humans and God were separated. Well, they become one. They're at one again. Okay, they were at one at one time, then they became separated. Well, they become at one again. That's atonement, at-one-ment. And the atonement happens, on the cross, where Jesus basically hangs on the cross in our place so that we don't have to hang on the cross enduring God's wrath. Okay, Jesus hung on the cross for men and women so they didn't have to. And when I, trust in that event, that Christ event on the cross, and I trust in Christ and Christ crucified, then I, become one with God again. I become reconciled. I become God's friend, okay? So, in addition to that, and we'll wrap up with this, we have the divine command theory. This is where God basically publishes God's views, okay? Because my nature is such that, I don't really want to to love my enemies, but I needed God to step in and say, no, you need to love your enemies, and here it is. Okay, my son says so. Okay, you need to pray for those who persecute. These are commands. Okay, I don't want to pray for those who persecute. I want to hate them and toss them into the Everglades to be devoured by alligators. Right? Okay, just in plain English. All right, but I needed God to step in and put a divine command in this textbook, okay, or this series of books, namely the Bible, telling me that I'm off track, and when I'm told to go the extra mile, that's a command. Okay, when I don't really want to walk a mile or go 4 feet for anybody, life is all about me, myself, and I. Well, human nature kind of wants to do one thing, but God steps in and says, no, do this, 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 and this. Okay, and the same thing even back in the Hebrew Bible with the Old Testament. With the Old Testament, the thou shalt, thou shalt, thou shalt, thou shalt not, thou shalt, thou shalt not. These are commands. Okay, so people need to be knocked around a bit. Okay, and one of the strengths of divine command theory is that it's very cut and dry. You know what's right, you know what's wrong. Okay. You open up the Bible and there's what God says. Okay, now at the same time, this can also be a weakness. Okay, because when you have 2 billion Christians reading the Bible, you'll get different views all over the board in the moral realm. Okay, what do Christians think about abortion or gay marriage or capital punishment, or immigration? I mean, it's all over the board. You can't get 2 billion people to agree on, these 66 books that are in the Bible, 27 of which are in the New Testament. I mean, you're just going to get different readings of it. So while what might look like a strength on the one hand can also be a weakness on the other. Oh yeah, it's cut and dry, just open it up and there's, what God says, but at the same time, there are different understandings of what God says. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, so divine command theory is very attractive. We can summarize it by that bumper sticker that says, "God said it, I believe it, that settles it." Have you seen that bumper sticker? God said it, I believe it, that settles it. Okay, that's basically divine command theory, and whether people know it or not, whether they say, "Oh, gee, I'm a divine command theorist," this is what they really are. Okay. Okay, so if that makes sense, everybody's doing great work. If you're a little behind, just go ahead and stay on it. Submit your work as you're able to. I'd rather give you some credit rather than no credit, but let's try to stay on top of the readings, on top of the cyber cafes, and we'll keep moving onward and upward here at Dome University and beyond. I'll see you soon.